in this case, I didn't open up a file on my desktop. I didn't click on an icon. What I did is I went directly to Illustrator, and I wanted to show you how Illustrator basically shows me a preview of some of the previous documents that I was working on. So as you can see here, it's available for me. Okay, another thing that I can do is I can go to File, and you'll notice that under File, there's File Open. There's also File Open Recent Files. And this also lists the recent documents that I've worked on, and the most recent is going to be stacked on top. So as you can see here, I'm just going to double click on this homework exercise, and it should open up this document for me. Okay, so I'm starting off for the first time in this session. There's a best practice that I've been trying to teach the class every time we launch Illustrator. Since there's other people working in this lab, there's a recommendation that I made in terms of preparing yourself. Does anybody remember what you should do before you start working? Reset Essentials. Who said that? Raise your hand. I heard it over there somewhere. Thank you very much. So that's what we want to do. We want to reset Essentials. So I'm going to go to the Window menu. I'm going to go to Workspace, and I'm going to select Reset Essentials Classic. Okay, and then when I do that, all of the panels should move back to their original position. Okay, now I want to ask you, what are these things called right here? These three white areas, what are these called? I'm sorry, I heard somebody say something, I didn't hear it very well. They are artboards, that is correct, they are artboards. Does anybody remember what this red line is called? The bleed, it's the bleed. So if I have a graphic that goes to the edge, it has to go beyond the edge to the bleed. Does anybody remember what this black edge is called? It starts with a T. It starts with a T. The trim. It's called the trim. So that implies that you cut this out, and you do. When you print something professionally, it's normally printed on a really large sheet of paper, and they cut it out, hence the term trim. Okay, so we have a bleed, we have a trim, we have our artboards, and then I'm going to go over here to the right. This is the icon that looks like two sheets of paper that are stacked on top of one another. This is the Layers panel. So I'm going to click on the Layers panel, and you're going to notice that it opens up my layers. I'm going to tear this away. I always tear away the layers because I want it constantly open. I like to see all of this information while I'm working on my document. And I also like to open up the Layers panel to be a larger window, so that way as I open up the layers, I'm able to see the information inside of them. All right, so here's my bowling ball layer, here's my donut layer, and then I have a blank layer. I haven't named it yet. Okay, so looking at this graphic, if I select the donut with my black arrow, the selection tool, what color should I expect the bounding box to be? If I select the donut, what color should I expect the bounding box to be? Red. Who said that? Great job. How do you know it's red?
Next to, on the layers, next to the eye, there's a red line.
Next to the eye, there's a red line. So if I select the donut, you're going to see that it has a red bounding box and also a red edge to it. The path, the preview of the path is described in red. So that means that if I select anything in the bowling ball layer, it's going to be blue. So if I click on the blue bowling ball, you'll notice the bounding box is blue. The bounding box for the shadow is blue. The bounding box for the holes on the bowling ball are blue. So if I draw something or illustrate something on layer 3, we know that the bounding box is going to be green for that object. So the bounding box is always tied to the layer color, and it's really nice that it's color-coded. So that way I can distinguish one object from the other. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to hit Command A, which means select all. And when I hit select all, you're going to notice that the bowling ball objects show a blue edge, and the donut shows a red edge. So it makes sense. All right, so I'm going to click on layer 3, and I'm going to name layer 3 Cartoon, or I'm just going to call it Toon for short. Just going to call it Toon for short, and I'm going to illustrate something here using the additive and subtractive method in combination. And I know that some of you have seen the example on the module already, and it kind of looks like a little mouse-looking character that's a little twisted. So I'm going to draw that here in a second. But before I do that, do any of you remember the panel that I used to extract the hole out of the donut and extract the bite mark? Do any of you remember the name of that panel? Oh, Pathfinder, really good. So since the Pathfinder is a window, it's a window, a panel's a form of a window, I'm going to find the Pathfinder under the window menu. So when I populate this, you'll see that I opened up the window, and the panels are in alphabetical order. So that's the logic, okay? So it's really easy for me to find the Pathfinder. All I have to do is just look at it in alphabetical order, and there it is, the Pathfinder. So I'm going to click on that, and it's going to open up the Pathfinder for me. Boop.